I have to work on some of these trails. They've grown up a little bit since the last time I was out here. I'm seeing quite a bit of poison ivy. Oh, leaves of 3, leave them be. Oh, hey guys, welcome back to the Hands-On channel. We're out here on my property at one of perhaps my favorite spot on this whole property. It's in the woods. It's back here away from everybody. I don't hear any noises from any of the neighbors. I don't even hear any distant cows mooing back here, especially on a windy day like today. Although it's pretty hot in here with all the tree canopy cover, but I at least get a little shade and get out of the sun. And I just love hiking around here on my property. So as I was walking around, I started thinking, you know, I should make a video for you guys about just the benefits of having a homestead out in the country, or, you know, having a home out in the remote areas of the United States while it's still there. I mean, there's a lot of people snapping those properties up right and left, so it's obviously going to be a lot harder to get into that these days than it was, you know, just 6 or 8 months ago. But it's not impossible, and I highly encourage anybody that's even remotely interested in living in total freedom, in total isolation from other people, not even able to see your neighbors. I mean, that's just a beautiful, beautiful, beautiful thing whenever you can just be out in your own property and you don't hear anybody. And now there are some downsides to it. You know, sometimes when I'm walking along out here and I'm out here all by myself, I sometimes wonder, well, what would happen if I just dropped dead of a heart attack right here, or I, you know, suddenly had a stroke or something? I mean, I'm a long ways away from a hospital. So if you're not up for the challenge, then perhaps this is not for everybody, is what I'm trying to say. But for me and my wife, we're still of the age that this is within our capability to do this. And so we want to get this established kind of as a retirement, so that when we're older and we can't work anymore, we'll have our land to fall back on and to live off of. Because, you know, if you have land, and you can see around me here, I'm in a pretty green area, a green part of the United States, so I have land that's productive. So I could easily grow anything you could imagine. I mean, just about everything grows here in my zone, as long as it's not like too cold weather related stuff, like a lot of the stuff that will only grow up in the colder climates won't grow here because it's just too darn hot in the summertime. So, I mean, you have to kind of know your area and know your climate and all that stuff. But I mean, as you can see around, I mean, just naturally, this is all just native trees. A lot of these are little bitty ones that, you know, many of them I'll have to cull through and get rid of to let the bigger ones survive. But it's kind of an unmanaged, undisturbed forest, other than where I've come through and cut trails and made a little pathway down to here so that I can get down with my motorcycle and stuff like that, and just hiking. But yeah, I mean, I saw a box turtle on the way over here. There's all kinds of deer track and deer sign all over the place as I'm walking in. So I know that this is a very productive piece of undisturbed, for the most part, land. Now, I do have some pasture land that the previous owner had cut out at one time or another and let go, and I'm trying to reclaim some of that pasture land because I think it's good to have a mix of both. And I plan to, at very least, just get it back to where I can manage it and keep the small saplings from growing in it. And then later on, I may turn that into a deer food plot, you know, plant some I don't know, Bermuda or their clover. There's all kinds of things you can plant out there to feed the deer and help the deer population there on your property, because I have enough land here that I can go hunting on my land. So that's something I look forward to doing in the future. So there's plenty of reasons to buy property. I mean, hopefully I'm not telling you anything. You've already thought about a lot of this stuff, but I just wanted to kind of weigh some of the pros and cons with you here in real time as I'm thinking about them, because I mean, it's incredible. I can't really even explain it to you guys. I mean, the difference between the time when I grew up as a teenager living in the cities and knowing how to operate in a city to now is just astounding. Now I barely know how to operate when I go to the city because it's so overwhelming to my senses. So when I'm out here, I hear the animals. They all suddenly stopped as I said I hear. I wanted you to hear all these crickets or whatever they are that are making their noises here in the distance. But I mean, I hear all kinds of nature, and that is good for my soul. It's good for everyone, every human being's soul. But we're not getting it when we live in the cities. So I highly advise you, even if you don't own land, go out and get in some remote areas. Go out, you know, if you've got a friend that owns land, go out there and help them out and get the feel for it so you can know at least what you're missing out on. Because I'm telling you what, I mean, I don't know if you can see it in the picture here, but I carry a pistol with me everywhere I go, and it's not to be Clint Eastwood or Dirty Harry. It's in case something happens out here that I need to basically deal with, and I'm too far away from a vehicle and too far away from a police officer to come out here and wait around for a police officer to come take care of me. No, this is my land, and I will, exercise my liberty on my land anywhere I want to. And in my state, that's totally legal. I'm sure it's probably legal in your state as well, unless you're living in like some crazy communist state like California or New York or something like that, or how Colorado is quickly becoming. But all hope is not lost. There are some other great states out there, and I've always been hesitant to tell people where I am because I don't want my state to be flooded like what's going on in Austin, Texas. I don't know if you guys are aware of it or not, but Californians are leaving California in droves and moving to Austin, Texas. And some of that's because of, the popularity of Joe Rogan. I'm convinced of that. But he wasn't even the first one. Several of these Hollywood people that are like, upper crust Hollywood types are moving out of Hollywood and California in general, and they're moving to places like Texas, Austin, Texas, more specifically. So I don't want my state to do that because I've seen what happens in the past when people like Californians move out of California and then move into a new area. Instead of, adopting new policies for this new wonderful area that they moved into, instead they try to bring in their Californian policies, their Californication of the USA. And I'm not down for that. So that's one of the reasons I don't really name where I'm at. And the other reason is just obvious security reasons. I mean, I'm sure by now that the federal government and everybody else that's watching me, all my handlers, they know exactly where I am. But that still doesn't mean I want to broadcast it because, I could use that to my advantage in the future. If somebody either comes on the channel or comes into my, in my life, in real life, and suddenly says they recognize me and know me from the hands-on channel and they know what state I'm in, that would pretty much tell me everything I'd need to know about that person. That they're probably a G-man, or they're probably looking out, they're looking too deeply into my life. That kind of stuff makes me uncomfortable. So I'm trying to, have some level of anonymity while you still can here on the internet. There may be a point in the future when I'm not able to do that at all because it's just, it's becoming just such a small world as far as all that goes. And these younger people are all too willing to give up their anonymity and their privacy for the sake of security. So, and that's something that Ben Franklin specifically warned us about. All of our founders warned us about, not giving up your liberty, your essential liberty, for the sense of security, because they knew that tyrants could manipulate that stuff. So anyways, back to why you should buy land. Tyrants have taken over our country. There's a thing going around right now as far as the eviction moratorium. So if you have land or you have property and you're renting that stuff out to somebody, you're not allowed to kick them out if they don't pay you the rent. So, the government is right now taking unprecedented controls of private property. So personally, I think it's a good idea not to buy and rent to other people, but to buy property for yourself and develop that property for yourself and basically entrench yourself on that property. Get yourself set up to where you have a homestead, you have a nice home. It needs to be a modest home more than likely, not a real big mansion unless you're loaded. Then you need to probably spend that modestly, modest home, modest barn, modest tractor, all those sorts of things that you're going to need to run your homestead, and all the implements you need for your tractor, and diesel storage and all the things that come along with that, learning about working on your own equipment. This is a multi-tiered thing. I'm 45 years old, and I am just now to a point in my life, even though I know almost anything, nothing mechanically scares me anymore. But even that being said, there are times when I'm out here that it's not about the process of fixing something. It's about the prospect nowadays of getting the parts. If something breaks now, you may be 6 months, 8 months down, especially if it's on a tractor or something like that, because they've had a huge problem getting imported parts since the Rona took over the world. So, and it really wasn't the Rona. It was the politicians that took over the world and implemented this bullcrap tyranny all over the place. So anyways, I digress. Get yourself some land. Get out of the cities. If nothing else, when you move out to that land, get to know your neighbors and stuff like that, your new neighbors, and, try to be peaceful with them and make nice with them, because they could be your allies in the future. Maybe you grow corn and they grow wheat, and you guys can work out some sort of a trading system. Or maybe you're the hog man and you grow all the hogs in the area and you trade that hog meat or that pork for other things that you want to put in your belly, because I'm sure even though bacon's great, when you eat it every day all the time, it probably gets, you know, a little old. You probably want to mix in a little beef every now and then, and maybe some chicken. So diversify and have your farm set up to where if one of your crops fails, or if one of your animal lines fails, you know, maybe you get into hogs and it goes terribly wrong and all of them die. Well, if you've got a bunch of money and time and everything else invested in that, and that's the only thing you've done, that's going to be devastating. On the other hand, if you're diversified and you maybe have some chickens and you maybe have some goats and you have cattle, if you can swing it, if you've got the property for that, you know, or another thing you could do with your property is, especially if you got pasture land, there's two things you could do to actually make money, or put hay in your barn for free, is you meet, you know, one of your local guys that's a farmer and it's already established and set up. Many times these guys will come to you and say, that's what happened to me here. They said, hey, I used to cut this field for hay. Could I come cut this? And he was actually going to come cut it at the end of last fall, but his equipment got broken. I can't remember what it's called, sickle mower, that one that sticks out to the side. They hit it on something and they ended up breaking part of that, so they weren't able to get over here last year. And this year, you know, I went ahead and brush hogged the majority of it. So I picked up all the trash, I got it all clean, so that this guy, when he comes in this fall to want to brush or to bale hay again, I can say, yeah, buddy, let's do that. And in fact, let's work out some sort of deal where, you know, you leave 1/3 of them to me and you take the rest, or something like that. And then a deal like that, I would have zero labor invested in that. And I'd be able to take that hay and even use it for my own animals, or use it, you know, throughout the winter for my own livestock. But right now we're not currently set up for livestock, so I'd probably just sell that hay. So that'd be profit to me. Yeah, it'd be a little bit of a hassle to sell that, but you know, that's putting your land to work. You know, if you guys have noticed, I'm sure you have, wood prices shot up through the roof. I got to reposition here, my foot's going to sleep. Wood prices shot up through the roof back in early 2021, and they've started to come down a little bit now, but that hasn't stopped, you know, so many dudes from going out, and ladies too, from going out and buying little portable sawmills, or maybe even big sawmills and stuff like that, and getting old-fashioned sawmills up to snuff. You know, look around here. Now we're looking at mostly small trees right in this area, but I've got some big trees here. I've got all kinds of species of trees to choose from black walnut to hickory to oaks to, you know, just you name it, willows and other stuff like that that are less desirable for firewood, or for firewood and for lumber. But you know, some people like that stuff for fancy furniture making and things like that. I've got cedars all over the place. So anyhow, use what you have to your advantage. You know, if I wanted to make some fields out here and expand some of my pasture land for either livestock or cutting hay, or anything else you can think of to do on that pasture land, growing crops, any of that kind of stuff, then I could easily do it in such a way where I could harvest certain trees and take those straight to my sawmill if I had one. So, and I don't have one of those. That's a big investment. Maybe what I'll do is team up with someone else that already has one and say, hey, if I let you have certain amounts of this wood, will you come in here and cut some and put some aside? You know, like again, maybe 1/3 of it. You put 1/3 of it aside for me, and you get to come in here and cut the wood that I flag off and say is approved for you to cut. You know, there may be trade deals like that all involved with it. You know, one thing I heard a while back, and it was a great idea. Sometimes you can talk to ranchers that are already established with cattle, and they're always looking for grazing land. So maybe you could work a deal with the rancher who's already established and he's already got all the equipment, and you could get him to come out here and totally put up a whole fence around your pasture just for the rights for him to graze his cattle on that property for a year or two or whatever, depending on how much pasture you have to have him fence off, you know. But there's trade deals you can work out when you have land and when you're a property owner and a homesteader. And that gets you away from taxation, which is why the government absolutely hates it. You can't tax somebody for doing a straight across trade like that. So that's why they want to get us off the dollar and onto some sort of a one world digital currency, is so that they can control and monitor every single aspect, every single penny you ever spend, everything you do. And I wouldn't be surprised if one day they don't try to tax you on your trade, especially because as the economy gets weaker and weaker, I think we're going to see more and more people going into a bartering system. It only makes logical sense to me that that's what would happen to avoid taxation. So These are just some ideas for you guys to think about. I am a big proponent of everybody in America having some land and knowing how to be agrarian. That's what Thomas Jefferson used to talk about back in the day. I think later on he kind of changed his tune a little bit under some pressure from the industrialists, but early Thomas Jefferson, he was all about the agrarian society of the United States. And he said things like, you know, if you're basically growing your own food here, and I'm paraphrasing obviously, but if you're growing your own food and you're providing everything you need for yourself to live off the land, then you don't have to go to a store. Therefore, that store doesn't have a level of control over you. The government doesn't have a level of control over you that they do when you live hand to mouth, paycheck to paycheck, at the whim of how much stuff the store has on the shelves. And we've all seen that's not as consistent as we'd like it to be. I've seen many shelves, the products just disappearing and not coming back. Or when they do come back, they're so damned high, you won't even buy them anymore. I'm getting to the point where I can hardly stand to buy bacon. It's so damned expensive now. So I'm looking real hard at getting some feeder hogs on this property right here in the next few years. So again, I'm not going to tell you where to go. I hear a lot of people moving to Idaho and stuff like that. A lot of preppers are moving up there. That's probably good to be around people that are like-minded. You know, lots of states are good. You know, even places like Oregon, where the politics are all leftist, but I mean, some of those towns are so remote that they're not really affected directly by a lot of the leftist politics that are going on there. And the same for Colorado, and the same for, you know, probably many other states like New Mexico. Although to me, New Mexico is a little too hot and dry. I would probably go for, you know, if I was picking today where I was going to live, I'd probably look real hard at Texas, and not the big flat open part, the deserty part of Texas. I would look at the Texarkana side of Texas. In fact, Arkansas, Texas, Oklahoma, certain parts of Oklahoma, again, certain parts of Arkansas. I'd look at Tennessee real hard. There's some beautiful places out in Tennessee, Kentucky. I mean, the United States is still just full of wonderful places that are full of woods like I'm standing in right here. So guys, what are you waiting for? Get over there on Zillow or Home Finder or wherever you go and find you some vacant land. I don't care if you have to go out there and camp on it to enjoy it for the start, you know, but if you have that land secured in the future, maybe you could, you know, put a shipping container out there and stay in that, or a camper, or maybe even if you've got the money or the skills, you could build your own house, and then you'd be totally debt free other than what you owe on the land. So these are just things to get your mind turning. I hope you'll do it, because it's the freest I've ever felt in my 45 years on this earth, is standing right here talking to you guys freely about property ownership. And every time I come to this property, I just get this feeling of, man, yeah, I don't have a Lamborghini. Yeah, I don't have $100 million in the bank. But you know what I do have? I have this right here, this property. And I think it's the most important thing, other than having somebody to love you and to share your life with. I think private property rights are certainly the most important thing in the entire Constitution, Bill of Rights. Everything about government hinges upon private property rights. Everything about our government succeeding and going forward. So defend them to the end. Defend property rights, even if you don't own any property, because someday you may want to own some. So anyways, guys, I don't want to go on too long. In fact, I'm burning up. I got to get a drink and get up out of this ditch and get over here and catch a few bass. So appreciate you tuning in, and good luck to you in your adventures. And I hope you find what you're looking for. Until then, guys, we'll see you next time. Oh my God, I was hanging onto that tree and it just came out of the ground. I'd rather not fall down on camera here. We'll see you guys.